Limbani is a 4-year-old chimp living in Miami, Florida at the Zoological Wildlife Foundation, or ZWF for short. He currently has over 661,000 Instagram followers. That's 628,000 more followers than Tufts has. Limbani's adorable. He also seems well looked after. He receives plenty of attention, and he loves his caregivers. It appears as though he has a wonderful life. Appearances, though, can be deceiving. Growing up, we learn to be careful about what we see online. Unfortunately, most people just aren't taught to scrutinize animal-related content the same way. Perhaps because animals are endearing and the lives they lead are appealingly simple. Few would think to question ZWF's credibility, integrity, or cause. They claim to be recognized by the Zoological Association of America, and ethics of wildlife conservation are plastered all over their website. It's easy to be sucked into Limbani's world, to become a fan, to like and share his videos, to want to go visit him in Miami on your next vacation, and to agree to pay ZWF $700 for just a few minutes spent playing with their star animal ambassador. As a pre-vet student and animal lover, I admired Limbani for a long time. I spent hours online watching him play and hoped to visit ZWF. After spending a summer working with chimpanzees at the only chimp sanctuary in Canada, though, Fauna Foundation, my outlook changed. I began to question many of the assumptions I had made about ZWF. And after more than 5 years of being a devoted Limbani fan, I unfollowed his Instagram. My job at Fauna was to care for and observe the 14 resident chimps, many of whom were rescued from biomedical research where they were used to try to find cures for viruses like hepatitis and HIV. Before I was allowed to meet the chimps, though, I had to learn their stories. One of the first stories I learned was Sue Ellen's. Sue Ellen, with her kind eyes and protruding ears, spent her first 15 years in a circus. She was cross-fostered, meaning she was raised like a human child, put in diapers, made to eat at a table using utensils, and tucked into a crib every night. This was a common practice at the time because scientists wanted to explore the interaction between genetic endowment and developmental environment. In other words, nature versus nurture. In Sue Ellen's case, it's likely the circus just wanted her to act like a human because it's funny. But as a chimp, Sue Ellen could never be human enough, and she was punished for it. When she didn't listen, her teeth were knocked out. And when she grew too big to be easily manipulatable, one of her only friends, her human trainer, walked her into a biomedical lab holding her hand, and then walked out empty-handed. While Sue Ellen was in the lab, she was housed alone in a cage not much bigger than her body, and subjected to many procedures, including something called a punch liver biopsy. For both humans and chimps, this procedure involves taking a needle, inserting it through the abdomen and into the liver, where it can rip off a chunk of tissue to be sampled. The difference is, you can't inform chimps of this procedure the way you would inform a human. No one told Sue Ellen that everything would be okay, or asked her to lend her arm so that she could be gently injected with an anesthetic. Instead, she was cornered in her cage and shot down with a dart gun. And while a sick human might undergo a few liver biopsies in their lifetime, Sue Ellen injured 29 in just the first year of her being in the lab. That's 2 to 3 times per month that she was cornered, then shot down. 2 to 3 times per month that she woke up confused and in pain. And that was only one form of torture Sue Ellen was forced to endure. She was also expected to be constantly producing babies who were quickly stolen from her after their birth and doomed to a fate just like their moms. There's no available record of how many babies were ripped from Sue Ellen's arms. Unfortunately, Sue Ellen's story is not unique. The United States government started stealing chimps from Africa, breeding them in captivity, and using them for research in 1960. By 1996, 1,500 chimps were housed in labs all over the country. Most of the chimps at Fauna have backgrounds just like Sue Ellen's. After hearing Sue Ellen's story, you might think that the Fauna chimps would be resentful, that they'd mistrust humans and be violent. But amazingly, that's not the case. Sue Ellen is one of Fauna's most tolerant chimps. But some of the other chimps at Fauna, like Rachel, for example, continue to struggle more obviously with their past. Like Sue Ellen, Rachel was raised by human parents until at age 3.5, she was deemed unmanageable and sent to a biomedical lab. Eventually, she was rescued and moved to Fauna. We're not supposed to pick favorites at Fauna, but something about Rachel always resonated with me. She's not the most objectively beautiful chimp. Her brow is furrowed, her ears are thick and deformed, and the hair on her head sticks straight up. But something about her always draws me in. I think it's her kind eyes that tell of her sorrow and also of her strength. Like Sue Ellen, Rachel came to Fauna in bad shape. She acted aggressively toward caregivers, had limited social skills and tolerance for other chimps, and was badly scarred due to self-inflicted injuries. For years, she had a swollen jawline from repeatedly hitting herself, and pink scabs along the side of her face due to excessive picking. Her self-mutilation also caused her cauliflower ears, a condition that typically plagues professional boxers and rugby players. Though many of her physical scars have faded, Rachel still usually appears in constant distress. Most people don't know this, but chimps can suffer from clusters of symptoms similar to post-traumatic stress and depression, and Rachel has many of the telltale signs. She rocks her head, whimpers continuously, and isolates herself. She has overdependence on her baby stuffed gorillas, which she takes with her everywhere. And she also, though less frequently now, has been known to attack her hands and feet, biting and hitting them until they bleed. Though it's clear that Rachel's tormented, she's been helped greatly with medication and has worked hard to form strong bonds with some of the other Fauna chimps. Ultimately, at Fauna, I witnessed the lasting impact of captivity and abuse on pet, performer, and research chimps who were all raised in environments not unlike Limbani's. And I saw firsthand how many of them will carry these scars with them for the rest of their lives. For chimps in captivity, that can be up to 60 years. Fauna's not perfect, but at Fauna, all the chimps now enjoy the freedom to be themselves and are no longer obligated to work, entertain, act as human companions, or be tools for medical research. They have stability and routine, companionship in other chimps, as well as solitude when they want it. Their welfare is always put first. Visitors are only allowed on Fauna's property on small guided monthly tours and are never taken to see the chimps without first sitting through a seminar on their history and behavior. Visitors can also never enter the chimp house. They only walk along the outside so that the chimps who want privacy can have the space for it. If that means that the visitors see no chimps that day, so be it. Seeing how the chimps were treated at Fauna helped me understand the problems with Limbani's treatment at ZWF. First, it's not clear where he came from. It's most likely he was stolen from his mother after birth, making him just another one of the 3,000 great apes poached from the wild each year. Second, he's the only chimp ZWF owns, denying him a healthy social environment. He's also constantly being shown off as if he were someone's pet, which makes people think chimps can be domesticated, makes it seem as though chimps aren't endangered, when in fact, they're very endangered, and reinforces the wild pet trait. Lastly, I can't help but wonder, what's going to happen to Limbani when he gets older and stronger, when ZWF can't control him anymore? What's going to happen to Limbani when he can no longer be used as a photo prop? What's going to happen to him if he ever hurts someone? Fauna also taught me things about primate behavior that I hadn't known before. And suddenly, posts of Limbani that I previously thought were adorable took on an entirely new and disturbing meaning. For example, this photo got over 25,000 likes. Someone who doesn't understand chimp behavior could easily mistake this for a proud smile. It's easy to attribute human characteristics and emotions to animals. In reality, chimps make that face when they're afraid. It's called a fear grimace, and it begs the question, what did the photographer do to elicit that emotion? The commodification of non-human animals exists outside the realm of social media too, and can be equally, if not more, problematic. Social media and the need for a good photo op just exacerbates the issue. Swimming with dolphins, playing with baby lions and tigers, and riding elephants at sanctuaries abroad are all common examples of animal and ecotourism that people engage in without realizing the harm they're doing to the species involved. Prior to interning at Fauna, I would have loved to partake in all these activities, but now I feel responsible to advocate for the animals that I've had the privilege of getting to know, and for others like them who don't have voices of their own. Advocating is hard, though. On the one hand, when I see my friends post photos of themselves doing these activities, or when they tag me in cute animal content online, I feel obligated to tell them about why it's problematic. On the other hand, I don't ever want to seem preachy. It's hard to hold people accountable for innocent actions, but education is powerful because people cannot change what they don't know. So having said that, here's some things you might not know that I encourage you to do something about after today. In 2015, the US government shut down its chimp research due to ethical concerns, and the National Institutes of Health promised to retire all their chimps to sanctuaries by 2020. But at the end of 2019, the NIH reneged on that promise after a panel claimed that at least 44 of the government-owned chimps were too ill to be moved. Another 134 chimps are still under review. The problem with this decision? The panel included only the NIH's own vets, and none had sanctuary or primate behavior experience. Now you may be wondering what incentive the NIH has to keep their chimps in labs anyway. Simply put, they receive taxpayer dollars to house the chimps. But this awful situation offers some promise, because if US taxpayers are responsible for supporting the government-owned chimps, that means we have the power to push Congress to retract that support. Unaccredited zoos are very common. While many zoos are working hard to give their animals better lives, most critics still feel that good zoos are in the minority. National Geographic notes how among the 2,400 animal enclosures licensed by the US Department of Agriculture, only 212 are regulated by the American Zoo and Aquarium Association. The other 2,188 are not. And while accredited zoos are always preferred, the argument that zoos in general are beneficial for their conservation efforts goes largely unchecked. David Hancock, a renowned zoo director and consultant, estimates that less than 3% of the accredited zoo budgets goes toward conservation. Unlike zoos, sanctuaries are a place of refuge where animal welfare is always prioritized over making a profit. Public outreach and education are integral, and ethical policies are in place regarding tours, commercial trade, exhibition, acquisition, and breeding. For these reasons, sanctuaries, when they're legitimate, are always preferred. But not all sanctuaries are created equal. Animal care is a poorly regulated industry, and thousands of organizations worldwide claim to be sanctuaries but don't provide humane care for their animals. Notably, elephant sanctuaries that let you ride the elephants, not true sanctuaries. In fact, any organization that lets you have direct contact with the wildlife, including feeding the animals, is not a true sanctuary. If you're interested, the Global Federation for Animal Sanctuaries provides more extensive guidelines. Making informed decisions about visiting captive wildlife is really important. Deciding to divest from unaccredited zoo and illegitimate sanctuary business is a significant first step in stopping their proliferation. And always do your research and err on the side of caution before you like or share a video of a wild animal online. If there's one thing I hope to impart to you all today, it's that we have a moral duty to put non-human animal welfare over our own entertainment. The exotic pet trade is a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's the third most valuable black market in the world, behind only drugs and weapons. And while the exotic pet trade has historically thrived in physical markets, it's since moved online. There are some pretty terrible people who engage in these marketplaces, but there are also innocent people like myself, and I'm sure like some of you, who just don't know any better. These animals who we love don't have a voice, but we have the power to be their advocates, and social media can actually help us succeed in that goal. So if you're ever in doubt, just ask yourself, is the animal's welfare being put first? Thank you.